As you can see, modern video games give you a lot of freedom, but maybe sometimes they give you too much freedom. Some games out there can often punish you when you try to explore a little too much. Hi folks, it's Mac, and today we're here to talk about 10 examples of games that punish you for exploring too much. We got a lot to break down, so let's get started.
It'll be good for us. Here he is, Chief.
The first game is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It's a love letter to lightsaber-loving fans, you know. It's a galactic feast for the eyes, a geek's delight, beaming you down to iconic worlds, plopping you down in Cal Kestis shoes. From the ghostly caverns of Dathomir to the bustling streets of Bracca, the game paints the universe with a stunning cinematic brush. It's Star Wars, but freshly squeezed with just the right balance of nostalgia and new. So when you're not slicing through enemies, the exploration and secret hunting are really cool at first. But eventually it goes into the pit of despair and not the existential kind. The punishment fits the crime here. Your exploration crimes were made worse by the galaxy's most confusing holographic map. The level designs here cross paths like, damn, those hyperdrive calculations that stop light speed in movies. It's like the game took you on a greatest hits tour of Star Wars maze worlds. Not just tourists, but hiking gear and survival guides kind of exploration. They're big, they're beautiful, but navigating them feels like trying to find the last cookie in the kitchen when your mom hid it. Short of it, Jedi Fallen Order here lacks traditional fast travel. Going off the beaten path means a long, repetitive backtrack if you want to recover your loot or advance the story, hiking up and down steps, digging through swamps, and evading clunkers. It's a trip down memory lane and sometimes a trip you really just didn't want to take. And then there's the runaway convict trick in exploring. Discover a new safe point, have a little lightsaber nap, and ta-da! All the enemies that you came from over yonder are back and begging another stab. It's the torturer's delight if your backpack is packed with collectibles. That is the video gaming nightmare, where even trying to see what's out there a little bit can be brutal. Up next is Final Fantasy II. Final Fantasy II, one of the granddaddies in the realm of folksy RPGs, decided to have a complicated relationship with exploration, like a teenager during their moody gothic phase. The game wanted you to explore, but it also wanted to punish you just a little bit. You know, a little yin and yang. It balanced both, but man, it was brutal, especially for the time. The game's crawling, claustrophobic dungeons were like this irresistible black hole for adventurers, pulling you in with the promise of the good stuff. Swords, armor, potion, plain old gold, just like you're gonna want to go into these dungeons, because all the good stuff is there, and nowhere else. But then the game would just laugh as your tippy toes went into a trap that drags you into a warp zone with even meaner monsters, stealing your lunch and your potions. Yes, folks, we said it. This adventure game is essentially mugging you. You know, Final Fantasy violence by proxy. But that didn't stop explorers from persisting. They braved the trappings of dungeon life. Auto-generated encounters and the depressing sight of an empty treasure chest. So when these dead-end traps actually show up, they didn't stop them. Not even after hours of trudging and fighting can lead to nothing more than another grating door slam in your face. These tricky little shits hit so hard that more recent versions of the game do give you a warning, but the original adventurers were left floundering, like tourists trying to find a toilet in the middle of an unfamiliar city. Coming in next is Dark Souls. You knew we had to bring up Dark Souls. You got thematically, purists say Dark Souls is about overcoming impossible odds, overcoming obstacles, going for it, right? But let's not overlook the other heart of the game. Exploring. It's pretty cool. The interweaving level design of Lordran makes exploration a tantalizing enigma, offering shortcuts and secrets tucked away in an environmental design like a labyrinth kit or something. The problem is that Dark Souls loves watching, you know, that curious little fool broke their neck and climbed the walls and squirm, but it just loves it. The game is this punishing meta-text, designed to reward slow and steady players while smacking the unavoidable hell out of the more brave-hearted than head-smart folks trying to pop into whatever. Of course, in a game where death is constant and expected, there's no overstating the consequences of exploring too soon the wrong areas, like the depths or the catacombs. Even passing that first bonfire can get you blown to smithereens by a skeleton hammer. It's game's way of saying, slow down sport, this is the deep end. Getting a little curious, on the other hand, early on with the Titanite Demon is like a car crash. Only you're the car and the crash. The game doesn't even have fast travel until almost the late levels, so exploring something like Ash Lake means an endless crawl through dead zones or wild goose chases around Lordan. It's so cruel there should be an antivirus. Next up at number 7, Elden Ring. Yep, we're staying in From Software games because look, Elden Ring's open world is a massive, mysterious tumble genetically designed to lure explorers like the fabled Golden Ticket. Only instead of chocolates and riverboat rides, what awaits is a world of wonder filled with hidden dungeons, collapsing cliff sides, and bosses really ready to smash your curiosity apart like a TV after a frustrating Cuphead boss. The relief is that in good old Elden Ring, it's a sandbox, meaning you can explore to your heart's content. But even if you do happen to wander too far from what the game designers intended, it's not the end of the world. You can still turn around. You know, there's like a warning going off when suddenly you're facing vastly underpowered odds, but navigating the world really is the ultimate punishment for trying to explore. You know, it will take an eternity for players to properly explore the map the first time through before opening up all the portals and shortcuts. The transport system is limited to fast travel, and bonfires are places of interest instead of fast travel to any bonfire. The real punishment is trying to get a head start on exploring the dimmer parts of the open world, like by going to Stormvale Castle from the start and turning Margit, a de facto first boss, into a terrifying mid-game nightmare. Next over at number 6, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, where, you know, exploration is the secret sauce that keeps the meat of the game from feeling like you're going from fight to fight. What makes the open world so rewarding are these little pockets of joy, the rush of finding a new village hiding in the swamp, or stumbling into a harrowing side story that was better than almost any other story, like, probably better than the main story you were doing in other video games, right? Only downside, though, is Witcher 3 would let you explore pretty much everywhere like anything your eye can see, and Geralt can run to on the map. Well, I'll spoil it for you, you can get there. But sometimes patience does pay off. Take all those tempting cross marks on the map. Each one calls to you like delectable treasure traps hidden away. But early on in the game, you've picked more than a few fights you'll regret. The beast's bite will pass your armor like tissue. A single guarded treasure could bring a goddamn horde of craving beasts, drooling to kill you. Then, of course, there are the roaming bosses you can stumble upon way after the prime adventure passes with traps hidden within ruins, or stumbling upon these ravenous ghouls. But moral of the story is like there's always something lurking or lying in wait, because it technically can be an extremely punishing world. Moving on to number 5, Bloodborne, which was really like a fresh twist on the old formula because yes, those echoes of Dark Souls can still be heard in the head, but Bloodborne has enough new tricks to really make it this whole new beast. And those beasts decided to swap warriors with hunters, slower weapons with faster weapons, and purple gloom with vibrant dark reds, setting kind of a color palette theme, right? That gothic architecture does feel like this full course meal for exploration-centric players though. And while you can't get lost as easy as the twisting course that we've talked about in Lordran before, Bloodborne really does try to keep the player focused on the main path. One of the best aspects of Bloodborne is how it captured that dangerous joy of good old-fashioned exploration, right? Find a lift, take it down, only to realize you're back at the beginning of the stage. It's the exploration equivalent of banker's boxes, filled with fresh new clothes and nostalgic failure. That punishment for exploring in Bloodborne really is for the overeager. Those folks who can go to the Central Ward as soon as they beat the cathedral, but will they? That place is a quirky house of horrors, boasting brain suckers that'll bite your brain for your insight and sanity, and those long corridors could eat your health faster than Locust at a buffet. Exploring too early could mean losing out on the stack of Madman's knowledge, so the perils do balance out the rewards.
I am every bit the fighter, the Kirati that they are, but they just see a woman.
At number 4, we have Far Cry 4. This open-world game is so full of strange and whimsical secrets, which is incongruous with the theme of this entry video, so you'd think pretty much nothing is off-limits, right? In some respects, that's true. They're not the friendliest games for modders or hackers, sure, but that's something entirely different from just exploring the area given to you by a game. It handles the prodding and poking of the world pretty well, but there is one aspect where the game is the exact opposite. I'm talking about the missions where if you stray too far from the mission zone, you're warned, and if you keep going, you get a mission failure. Red Dead-like open-world adventuring, except you have to stay in the area the game tells you, robbing you of any meaningful sense of freedom for the duration of a mission. It's part of the old Far Cry mission formula, which puts the game in these rigid, scripted, highly structured linear set pieces. It doesn't jive with a game that is primarily a sandbox. They're arguably getting better about this with every sequel, but still, it's an annoying artifact of the old design that crops up from time to time in games like this, and it's extremely annoying when it happens. Coming in at number 3 is Returnal. If there's one thing this entry makes clear, punishment is relative. If exploring the open world of Far Cry 4 is like exploring your backyard, Returnal is like venturing into the Himalayas without a guide. It's vastly more punishing. But for that game, explore the world in ways it doesn't want you to, and you just die instantly. Returnal is a game where they force you to explore, but they're not exactly friendly to the player about it either. For a normal person, the vast majority of this strange new world is an option. If you only played the areas you absolutely needed to, the game would be done in less than an hour. The procedurally generated world chunks here are meant to be ran through at a brisk pace, and a completely risk-averse player will spend maybe about 4 to 6 hours on the first area here. For a normal person, though, who'll be dying, this game takes way longer. This game ropes you in with promises of hidden mysteries that beg for exploration, and there are secrets to find, but a lot of these deviations off the critical path tend to go against, well, your better judgment. There are traps in secret areas that do way more damage than normal traps, and secrets that are obscured so well I don't think anyone's ever found them. There are also rare items like parasites that you can find by exploring that give you some kind of benefit at the cost of a debuff. And it's the worst kind. You don't know what it's going to do to you until you have it, and all of them are technically removable, but sometimes the price for removing it is even more of a hassle than just keeping the thing. Exploring in this game is a huge risk-reward balance. It's the bread and butter of this game, but that doesn't mean the world's any less punishing. If the card table is being forced to smash pots with a sword on the lowest possible table-raising sweeties, Returnal is 50k on red or black, and both are actually green, 'cause screw you. And at number 2, it's Dead Space. When it comes to games that punish players in-game, we have to talk about Dead Space. One of the most classic examples of a game that loves screwing with the player. These games are full of moments where you practically invite death on yourself for having the audacity to try and see more of the game. The developers specifically designed the space station with side rooms that look optional but are actually death traps. You know the ones I'm talking about. The tiny closet-sized cubbies at the ends of the hall that you want to check out for some useful ammo or medical supplies, but always come with some major problem, where some necromorph is either sleeping, hiding in the ceiling, or some even worse over-engineered bait hall situation. It's really a funny self-own, because in the films, The Thing and Alien, there are moments where one guy is so scared of a noise that he goes into these stash rooms and feels better for having his gun. But if anyone on board this crazy station in Dead Space tried that, the gun would be shooting through a bunch of cables running through their stomach. The setup of this entry is in mention of the Ishimura, the space station that it takes place on, that is clearly meant to invoke the Nostromo from the movie Alien. Except you die a lot faster if you acted like Dallas with a flamethrower. And it's a little more gruesome than the isolation of the Nostromo necessary to create the geography that we see Sigourney Weaver running through, not having any idea where she's gonna go. So in Dead Space, think twice before venturing into those side rooms, because there might be more blood in that blind spot than you'd see out in the open. And finally at number 1, it's Metro Exodus. For a game where you spend a lot of time scrambling around the wilderness in the day, Exodus really doesn't want you exploring too much at first. Introducing us to a gentler, softer wanderer before the game goes full-blown combat against mutants or rival factions makes sense. But the essential underpinning principle of Exodus remains untouched. It's that the game is rooted in a survival-first mentality, emphasizing the need to maintain your supplies. And for a game that used to be pretty linear, the move to this pseudo-open world format allowed the developers to create more optional things to interact with the trade-off of making exploring the sandbox more dangerous. Your limited movement options make you a prime target for mutants, plus alternate paths are often lined with hazards or traps that deplete your already low health reserve. You can burn through a significant chunk of your reserves just by scouring an optional building and run out of bullets before even completing the main mission, which doesn't give you many opportunities to replenish afterward. So yeah, if you wander too far off the beaten path, you better stock up on supplies before doing anything else. While the game is kinda stingy about resources in the beginning, you're gonna encounter more places to scavenge for stuff as you progress further. But still, scrounging is an essential survival habit in the game, and you don't want to run out. Now we do have a bonus. It's my favorite game, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Of all From Software's games, I think Sekiro is the most punishing for players who try to go off the beaten path too early. This game actively hates you for any kind of exploration, giving you the illusion that you can explore vertically without being punished first thing, and then showing you over and over and over why sometimes you're just better off staying on the ground. If you stray even slightly from the beaten path before properly beating the stages in the intended order, you're gonna have a bad time. If you don't take out the mini-bosses who gate the different locations, you are going to get absolutely wrecked. Head off into the Sunken Valley early, well, have fun dealing with a nearly invincible Great Serpent, by far the biggest pain in the ass to kill in any From game. You are definitely not ready to fight it yet though, and even just trying to get through this area in a legit way is absolute hell without all the upgrades and tools you'll need later. Or try heading into the Ashina depths and try to take on Snake Eyes Shirahagi. You're gonna get a serious ass whooping. This area can be a pretty tough stopgap even when you're properly prepared. You're probably not going to last 10 seconds here on a lower vitality and skill level. Plus, without the right prosthetic weapon, the mist alone in the area is going to kill you. Pretty much every optional area in this game is a step up in difficulty compared to the main path, and anyone who tries to take on these areas without being properly prepared gets swiftly and brutally reminded why it's a bad idea. The base game is tough enough as it is. Going to a late game location early is next level. Anyway, that's all the games we have for this video. If you have any game that you think will fit for this list, let us know in the comments below.